Hi everyone. One of the subscriber have asked me how can I enable an auto shutdown feature for a virtual machine, which is so when it's listed from a CSV file. So there will be a CSV file which will be having a list of VMs, and now how would I go and enable an auto shutdown for this for the virtual machines which have been mentioned in the CSV file. So we'll go ahead and write a script on that, and let's understand how would we do that, the approach we can go with. So first let's understand how do we take a data from a CSV file and uh, where we have mentioned about a virtual machine and all that. So first we should be in a position to take whatever ante if CSV file low in this rows, whatever data we have related to a virtual machines, we would like to first able to read that and then execute commands on it. When this is the one which we have to uh, first this is the first step which we have to go and take. So then the second step will be the after once we have the entire data of each of rows, the second step we would be going is for each of that virtual machine we'll go and enable the auto shutdown. So what is enabling an auto shutdown? So Azure virtual machines have one feature saying that you can go ahead and enable the auto shutdown where if you mention at what time you wanted to shut down your machines, at that point of time it will automatically shut down without your uh, interference. This has been brought down because developers might be working on their sandbox environments or test environments or test subscriptions to create virtual machines to reduce the billing when they are not utilizing the virtual machine. The auto shutdown VM of that VM, this feature will really help them to shut down at a specific period of time. So we will try to work this out using the PowerShell. Now the same thing we can do with easily with the uh, going to portal and all that. But the challenge which the current individual who have reached out to me is facing is they would be getting this uh, where they would be getting a CSV file where they'll be having a list of machines and they have to go and enable the auto shutdown for that. So it's a repetitive task where they end up, so if there are 10 virtual machines or 20 virtual machines, they end up spending some 30 minutes or 40 minutes to do that activity. Now using PowerShell, how do we reduce this effort of 1 hour or more than that without having ensuring that every virtual machine which has been mentioned in the list are being automatically and being enabled with the auto shutdown. So let's go ahead. First step which I feel that is able to read the CSV file. The data from the CSV file is the first step because all the data of virtual machines were actually there. So if the first step is to write a script in terms of how to read it. So I'll go ahead and I will don't have an Excel with me. So what I'll do is I'll install is I opened from the drive and mention here VM list and virtual machine name, or I'll just say VM name and RG name and subscription ID. I believe this would be sufficient while I'm going and making changes. So the first thing is subscription ID. Can go and get my subscription ID here. Copy this. I'll paste it here. Now I will say VM-RG is my resource group and VM01 and VM02. Let's assume that. Just copy it and paste it here. This is it. I'll go ahead and download this file into my machine as CSV file. I'll go ahead in this folder. So it is been into one folder. Let me copy this and paste it in the folder, and I pasted it in this so and so folder, and there am I. So if I type ls, I have the the VM list sheet 1. Okay, let me go and edit it as VM list. That's it. And I go here and I'll check ls, and I have that. So you might not be able to run this ls is a Linux command. You might not be able to run it in your Windows machine sometimes because of you might not have enabled to run basic Linux commands in your machine. So in that kind of way, just type dir and you will be able to see it, and you have the vmlist.csv. I'll clear the screen, and now first thing which I'll do is there's a command to get the CSV file. So I use get command, and I'll check related to do we have anything command related to CSV, and we have it. And if you look at it, import CSV is one commandlet, because here all there are functions and alias which I don't want, and the only command I'm specifically looking for command. So these are the 4 commands. One is convert from CSV, convert to CSV, and you already have a CSV, so I don't need to specifically convert or anything. I just need to import that. So I'll do import CSV. So if I wanted to know how to use it, I'll use get help command, which will give me more information, and there will be more examples also. How do you uh, write this? So here I just need to mention the path of the file. Where does the file exist? So if I mention that one, that is enough. So I'll clear the screen and I'll say import -csv -path, and then in the same path it is VM list, because I'm in that particular folder path, so I don't need to mention here the entire path. vmlist.csv, and there we go. Once I imported, I was having this data, VM RG name subscription, and these are the data which I have in that resource, in that file. Now I wanted to keep that into a variable because I wanted to store it. So I'll just store it in, create a variable called vmlist equals. Now if I just type vmlist, I have this one. So if I ask for VM name, I have v10. If I ask for RG name, I have the RG. So this is how it's more easier to actually get that. Now I'll put that in code. So if I just have to copy this is the first thing which I have to do. So wherever I am running this one, I have to ensure that the list has been there. Okay. Once or I even mention set location, because that file is going to be there in this folder path. So I'll just copy this, and this is enough. Set location. So even I clear the screen, and if I just mention cd space c colon cd space c colon users. Okay, now if I just copy this, I'll get into that particular path. That's what the point is, set location. So I'm going to whenever the script is executing, the first thing is it's going to go into that location, and then it is going to look for so file vmlist.csv. It's much simpler. Now I wanted I got the data what I wanted. Now next is I have to go and enable the auto shutdown for each of the VM. Now how do I go and enable an auto shutdown for a single virtual machine? Instead of right now, let's not focus on multiple virtual machines. I have to focus on just enabling for a single virtual machine. Then I can go and import and keep it in this in a for loop and all that. Now, how do I do that? So the quick, easier one is I have to go to Google. Now I say auto shutdown of Azure VM PowerShell. So I have one particular saying that Azure virtual machines, when I'm looking for PowerShell, let me look for it. We have an automation stopped. Enable auto shutdown for the virtual machine. Already have it. Nice. Okay. I see that they're mostly explaining through how do you go and do that in a lab point of view. But how do you go and do that from a commercial point of view? No one is explaining. Do we go and do it enable the auto shutdown feature? Now, how do you enable an auto shutdown? Let's understand how an auto shutdown looks like. So I'll go here and I'll type virtual machines. I'll click on Azure Virtual Machine and I'll mention VM-RG VM01 US, and I'll just keep this as standard. This I'm just keeping it as spot instance. I'll just keep the password as trainer Indian @ 1234567 Indian @ 1234567. Okay, so this is my common password. Just paste the date and I go into this networking. So I no need to actually enable any public IP at this point of time. Reason is because I just wanted to shut it out. So I'll just remove the public IP here. I'll ensure I'm deleting it. I'll disable it. Now, where do you find auto shutdown? If you see here, enable auto shutdown. If you selected at what time you wanted it to be automatically shutting down, you wanted that data. So here I'm not just checking that right now at this point of time and disabling everything. I'll go ahead and I'll create this virtual machine. Go ahead and click on create. Now that is done, I'll remove this. I wanted to see whether we have anything related to shutdown of a VM. It's a script mostly running around. Okay, so here seems this is an older one. We would not be able to use this. Okay, so when we are not able to find the command specifically where we have to run it, how do we go and do it? I'll show you guys. So let the virtual machine get created. I'll create one more virtual machine, VM02. Enable it. I'll go ahead and I'll select password trainer Indian @ 1234567 and I'll go and do the same things which I have just done there, which is I'll remove the public IP, will enable this, I'll disable this, and I'll not enable auto shutdown, which is by default will not be enabled. I'll click on create. let it get selected. Now, when I'm not able to get it, any Azure VM command -az is the one. Shut down. I just wanted to enable that auto shutdown feature, but I am not able to see it here. So I'll show you what is an auto shutdown. I go into this virtual machine and I select here an auto shutdown. You should be able to see if it is enabled. It will should show as on at what time it will shut down the machine daily point of time. Now it's off, so there's no problem with it. So I'll just click OK. Now once I have to run and enable, I should see that the auto shutdown is enabled and all that. It's just an administration task, and that's the reason why, but I'm not able to find the command with specifically. So here at this, when I'm having such things, so I wanted to understand when I enable an auto shutdown, uh, what is the source type in Azure for auto shutdown. So here, if you see, if there is someone who's saying about what is a service, or if I even get an ARM template, it will be more easier for me and to get that. So let me show you how do I get that. Just a second. I'm not able to figure out what is a PowerShell command to shut it down that virtual machine. Now I will look for the pretty easier one is auto shutdown resource type ARM. So if I can pull any ARM template where specifically through which we are able to get that enabling the auto shutdown, it will be more easier. If I see here, it has been mentioned that dev test labs and the type is schedule. So to shut down a machine, you need to go with the resource type, which I can see here is the auto shutdown of the uh, for the virtual machine. We can't just type microsoft.compute and go ahead and make that changes, because here it is specifically mentioning that that is not the resource type for auto shutdown. The auto shutdown is coming under microsoft.dev/testlab/schedules, and that's the reason why we don't have any commands where it was trying to talk about how do we the command for creating an auto shutdown feature and all that. So let's go ahead and create that. So one thing which I'll do is I will need to have the subscription ID of the virtual machine, and then I need to have the details of the virtual machine. I need to have the task details and all that. So if I see status is enabled, the properties, and the task type is compute VM shutdown task, and it recurrence at what time the auto shutdown recurrence is happening. So enable is nothing but that is what you are seeing. Enable, the status is enabled, which is nothing but we are switching it on. The next one is task type is compute VM auto shutdown, and the daily occurrence at what time you wanted it. I wanted it specific time, at what time zone you wanted it, time zone ID, and then do we need a notification? So what is a notification? So do you need any notification? All that. Now if I can mention my email ID here, and that would be sufficient. My email ID, notification, and in notification I could only see that the status is disabled, so I have to keep it enabled. I can't keep it disabled because the status for notification setting is on, so I'll keep enabled, and I have to mention here status enabled and time in minutes. So how will I get this? So I can actually go and look for compute VM task specifically. Down task, resource type JSON. Definitely there will be a documentation where they would be talking on this activity, and it will be easy for us to get that. Is sure auto shutdown task, and I have it, and have anything in learn. Okay, auto shutdown, I need a JSON script for it. There it is, enabled compute shutdown. So this is how will be no proper answer which you can find from internet, but you can actually go and understand. From notification settings, I see status, time in minutes, and email recipient. That is enough for me. 10 minutes, by what time you wanted the notification. I think in 15 minutes I wanted to send the notification. So I'll mention email recipient and all that. So I'll use the same code, but these are the properties which we have to go and use this. So I have a subscription ID, so I'll mention subscription ID equals what do you say, VM list dot subscription ID. Similarly, I wanted resource group name, and the same thing, RG name, because that is what I have in this one, RG name. Okay. And then we have VM name. So I don't need to go for each of that and all that. So how would I keep it? I got a list of virtual machines, right? And so for each, I'll say for each VM VM list, and I'll select the subscription ID. Select -az. So in which subscription I have to run this command is very important, right? So I'll select subscription. Select -az subscription -subscription. Okay. So we have subscription ID. So I'll just use subscription ID here. ID, and then I'll just pass it VM list dot subscription ID, not VM list. It's VM dot. So each row, like each row in that list, and each row from that I wanted subscription ID. It will take the subscription ID, and then resource group also is VM dot RG name. And once I have this, then I don't want any output. So I'll just say output null, out null, and then I have to enable this auto shutdown. So to enable the auto shutdown, I need this properties. So I can copy it there. I believe I got it from here. So this is the properties, but I have to change. This is not in the right format, right? The point is I have to keep it as properties, dollar properties equals, and I will define everything of this. This is how we define it in the PowerShell. That is in a JSON point of view. So it comes out of an experience and how would you play with ARM versions and all that. But pretty much you have to go with this flow. I couldn't able to find anything from internet or somewhere specifically being mentioned about this one. So here I wanted email recipients. How did I get that one? There are email recipients from here. So I'll take email recipient. Equals, and I need email also if at all I wanted. Now at this point of time, let's not focus on email recipient because in the list I don't have anything related to email recipient. Now if I wanted, I can keep it. Okay, I'll mention email ID because that's also been requested, and here I'll mention BRK for opportunities the rate gmail.com. So I'll use the same thing. I'll mention here. Okay, so this is good. How do I mention that here? So I have to, even when I'm taking that list, I have to take email ID also. VM dot email ID, right? It is email ID. And I'll convert to toString here. That's very important that you need to be able to convert into a toString. If you wanted to even provide at what time zone you wanted it, might be for different subscriptions they are running in different regions and all that. You also wanted a time zone ID to be also listed out. You can mention here time zone ID. Okay, and at this point of time, I'll just copy this. That is good. This is good enough. And here I have this, and even this one, I'm going to reference it from the CSV file. I'm taking the data, right? So VM dot email ID, not email ID, time zone ID. Time zone ID, yes. I have to convert into toString even this one. So I take that data and I'm converting into toString. Here at 7 o'clock, I have to wanted to shut down the machine. and I'm leaving that as it is. This one I have to leave it enabled, otherwise the notification settings will not be enabled. And here the resource ID is target resource ID is mm-hmm. I'll just mention Microsoft.virtual machines, at what virtual machine you wanted to add it. Keep this one. How will be the resource ID of a virtual machine? You can go into it and you can check that. Overview में click करो and you will be able to find it. And here we have it, the subscription ID, and this is how a resource ID will be there for a virtual machine. I wanted to have the same thing. Now how do I keep it? Slash subscriptions. And here slash subscriptions, I need subscription ID. This is the subscription ID. I'm concatenating it, and then resource groups. So and that is VMRG name source group. Then I add it, and once I have it, now I have providers slash Microsoft.com virtual machines, and I need the virtual machine name. So that is VM.name. Will I get that? So VM.VM name. So this is sufficient for me to get the entire resource ID of that this thing. So I have to only ensure that it has been in 2 strings. I'm converting into a string format and I'm adding it. So this is good. So I'm able to create a properties with so and so fashion. And once I created this property, I have to go and apply that to the virtual machine. Now, how do I go and apply that to a virtual machine? I will choose to this is a different resource type entirely, so I have to create a what do you say, a resource specifically on this. So I'll select new -az resource. It's more easier to actually create in this fashion, and resource ID here, and the resource ID of this is how would I do this? So I go here, I select, here is the resource ID. So I am choosing the subscription ID, and I have to create so and so resource. Okay. Schedules, and here auto shutdown VM. So I have to find a resource ID for specifically. How would a resource ID for an auto shutdown? Ask. So just give me a minute, guys. So how would we go and look for a resource type? So I wanted to create a resource type of an auto shutdown. And am I finding one? We have compute, get resource ID. This is a pretty easier one to write it, but either I have to go and check that out. In JSON point of view, it is fine. To find this resource ID, how would I find it? I have one way of finding these things, which is I go here, I enable the auto shutdown, and I can pull out from the logs. So even if you are not understanding how this working out and everything, this experience of going and creating will help you figure out as you keep going on. It will help you figure out how you can go and do stuff. So here, clicking on save. So this is making me create a resource specifically because this is a different resource type. And when it is a different resource type, that's why we don't have any command specifically in Azure VM, specifically going and telling that go and enable that auto shutdown for that VM. That's what I was trying to look while I was trying to open initially, and I couldn't able to find anything about it. Now I automatically understood out of my experience that when there is no command out of it, then Microsoft most probably will have a different resource type for that auto shutdown. So I started looking at what is the resource type for an auto shutdown task. And when I was looking for it, one thing which I couldn't figure out is the resource type is Microsoft Dev Test Lab. So it's coming, that's one of the feature which is in Microsoft Dev Test Lab schedules. Now, how would that okay, that's a resource type. But when I'm creating it, this is an instance, specific instance. Now it will definitely have a resource type. Resource ID. I wanted to have that resource ID because while I'm going ahead and creating one, I wanted to specifically call out that resource ID and all. So for that reason, I am trying to right now enable this one. Now, once this is enabled, this auto shutdown, I can go into the activity logs and I can literally go and see with what is it which have been done. So it will take some couple of minutes for the updation to happen. I believe the data just which I have enabled for auto shutdown, that is going to come in some 5-10 minutes. Yeah, so let me take a pause till that point of time. It took some couple of minutes for the data to come back. So our data, when it came back, I was looking in the activity logs for a virtual machine and I couldn't able to find it because it's not in that resource type. So that is why that is not been updated, that operation type has not been updated here, but everything is happening under the subscription. So I went into the subscription and I clicked on activity log there, and I could actually find that in last 3 minutes back there is a update which happened on that one. And if I go and look at it, if you go and see, here is what the resource type it is. Now that is what I wanted. What is the resource type of the resource ID of that when it is getting created? Now if I use the same resource ID while I'm creating it, the job gets easier. So I have to mention here resource ID equals, we'll do the same thing, concatenation and resource groups. So till here we don't have anything. Microsoft. So I'll just do the same thing. Microsoft dot dev test lab schedules. Till here it is same. Now comes VM name. Now this is the source ID. So I copy this and I mention the resource ID here, and when I'm creating a new -az resource, so automatically from this resource ID, it is getting to know that which subscription, which resource group, and what is the name of that schedule. So this is also one way to do it when I don't find any commands. I'm just showing you all ways I can actually. So definitely we need a location because we are creating a resource. Now I wanted to create in where the virtual machine is there. Now if I wanted to get that, now how do I get it? I use get -az VM to get the virtual machine, and so command here is get -az VM, and I look for the name. So this one is name. Even I can't remember all the commands. No, you should not. That's not the way to you should not remember commands. So if you're expecting that I'll go to an interview and I'll talk about how am I going and doing how what commands I'm used in my previous job and all that, it doesn't work out that way. That's not how it is, because there are a lot of commands which are there. No one wants that. So I wanted the name, and the next thing is I wanted the resource group of the virtual machine. Now that is sufficient for me. So I'll say resource group name. Then where is the resource group name here? And that comes under vm.rg name. So I need to keep this one because then in order to keep toString, automatically it is going to convert there. VM name, resource group name, rg name, and I'm going to get this details, VM details equals. Out of this, I can say VM details dot location, because it will be I'll get all the details of that virtual machine in that resource group, and once I get that, I'll say resource group in that location, and I'm creating this resource, that is this resource, this schedule. So what is it? These are the properties I wanted it. So I can mention here properties. I've created one resource. So that's the reason why I could able to figure out this. Otherwise, I couldn't have figured out this logic. So it comes out of an expertise itself. But definitely there will be a first time every time. So it took me a lot of time initially to figure out that I can create resources in this manner in certain cases. And why am I keeping 4? So that it will not ask me for any confirmation when I'm going and creating it. Now first I have to go here, and few things which I have to do with is to go and remove this auto shutdown. Why did I enable it? Hope you got me, to understand what is a resource ID and everything. That's the reason why. So I was showing you how did I figure it out, all the steps. Go and show you how do we enable auto shutdown VM, but that isn't the way to actually approach the issue. It's how did we come to a phase figuring out that this is the way. So it took me while I'm trying to search in online what is the right steps and all that. It definitely, because out of my experience, I could actually figure it out a bit faster. But if you are spending some quality time of some 3-4 days, slowly, if you are new to it, and then things will start falling in place, that you can figure it out within a couple of hours and all that. So here, this is done. So I have to go and just test it out whether this is working or not. So I'll test it out once I disable this. If I go into auto shutdown, it is disabled. So if I go into this, I have the email ID and everything. So I believe email ID, time zone, resource group, subscription ID, these are sufficient. So let me test it out. I'll go and click download CSV file, and it went and downloaded the CSV file here. So I'll go and copy that into the PowerShell 1. I'll delete the old one here and I'll use this one and rename it. So here I go into the command prompt or the terminal. I'll clear the screen. I type ls. I have the VM list. Now I do import CSV VM list. I have this VM02 and VMRG and all this. So I think I have the respective data. Now I'll go ahead and I'll just validate finally. So each time it goes into the loop, it just looks at VM, and let's go and run this. So I'll go here, shutdown.ps1. So before that, I have to ensure that I'm logged in into my account, right? So I just do AZ logout. I'm logging out from a CLI. Next thing which I do is login -AZ account. It's asking to provide my password. When I have a lot of subscription IDs, that is making me to go and check that. So here, what is a subscription ID which I am specifically looking for? This is a subscription ID. Go ahead and I'll select -AZ subscription ID. So one thing which I have to do is I have to select the token amount, tenant also here. That is making an issue. So I have different tenant IDs. So to select my specific tenant ID. So I'll select this tenant ID and I'll do a logout an AZ account. Login tenant. There we go. I have this one. Now under this, to use select -subscription ID. Okay, now I'm inside this. So if I do get -AZ context, I will be showing me in which subscription am I, and that is the subscription which I wanted to be. So this is also good. Once I'm inside it, I'll ensure that I'm running shutdown.ps1. There is an issue here, time zone, property occurrence, and this is an array. That is one which seems I missed it. And JSON is, and when this in PowerShell, this comma becomes semicolon, and mention here semicolon, and here I have to mention this is also an array, right? And set of resource properties, and here this becomes also in order to mention here this one, that just creates issue. Okay, so this sounds well. This is good enough. Now let me go ahead and save this, clear the screen, and I'll do shutdown.ps1. It's showing warnings which I don't wanted it. Okay, so it went and created a shutdown for activity for the VM1 and VM2. Okay, but I wanted to remove it. I can actually here I can mention uh, continue silent, continue on silent and like that. So it will not show any warnings and all that. So while I'm selecting, because I have different tenants, I'm getting this, but it is not able to acquire that token. Token is nothing but an just an authorization token. Well, it's going and checking. So it's going and saying that that particular tenant ID is not able to acquire the token. So I'm not getting into the details at this point of time. I'm leaving that. I'm seeing that in that particular subscription, it's going and enabling this. So I can select the virtual machines. If I go into VM01, and I enable go to auto shutdown task, I have this which is enabled at so and so time and email address. Now if I select VM02, the same thing, it is selected. Now if I would change this task, then it will go and automatically go and update that. So I can go and again switch off this and even this one. Now let me try, instead of this one, I'll try 20. And can change the time zone ID to our IST time zone. So how can we go and change that? Auto shutdown time zone ID. So docs time zone ID Azure time zone ID. So here it is, time zone ID, and for plus 5:30 is our IST time zone. So it is Indian Standard Time. So I'll just copy that here and I'll mention here that specific PP, this one, that it is Indian time zone, and good. So go and download this to CSV file, and I have to again keep it into this local stuff. So let me go to downloads, copy it. So I have it. I can go and clear the screen. If I type ls, I have it. Now I clear the screen and I do shut down PS1. So it is every time it is going and selecting the subscription, because you have machines might be in different subscription IDs in case if you have multiple subscriptions. Otherwise this error won't come. I can remove this because I'm already in that subscription and this warnings wouldn't be coming. I can actually even avoid warnings saying silently continue and all that. So here I can go right now to this one. Again, I can go and check. Now if you see, I have the time zone which is IST time zone, and this is 19. Interesting, I mentioned here 20, right? And that got updated into 19. Okay. Seems the updation of this is incorrect here, and I have to find how do I give a time zone ID. So I have to look at it, but I believe this is the way you can go ahead and mention enabling the auto shutdown task. I think I didn't save this, I guess. Okay. Okay, I didn't save this. So that's the reason why it didn't get, it was having the previous one. Just because this Excel sheet is having uh, the latest different time zone, it got automatically updated, but this time zone is not got updated because of that reason. Now I can mention here shutdown. I can remove here if at all, just showing you if you don't have multiple subscriptions, you can comment that out. Save this shutdown.ps1. Yeah, see, we don't get any warnings because it's not selecting. Because already I'm in the subscription, so I'm not selecting it anymore. So went and enable it. I can go and check VM02. I have 8 o'clock at the IST time zone. Previously, why did I get it? Because that is updated in Excel sheet. Now, what did I do? Why does it not get updated? When I saved it, why it is coming at 20? Because this is a script. I saved it in my local machine, and once I'm able to save it in my local machine at 8 o'clock, when I'm running the script, it is automatically taking that 8 o'clock. But before it was 19, that is 7 p.m. and I didn't save it, so it is showing as 7 p.m. But the email, sorry, the time zone ID is taking from the Excel, the CSV file, so that is updated. So there we didn't face any issue. So that is how you go and do an auto shutdown, guys. I think this is good enough. I'll stop the recording. Thank you.